CEO Live Talks.
I am Dr. Swanee Jett, and I have a passion for public health for over 30 years. Now, I'm in a position to affect change, and these are the critical conversations about health in our community with the people who can help me make those changes. Good afternoon. Welcome to CEO Live Talks. I'm your host, Dr. Swanee Jett. Today, I have a very special guest coming onto the show, Dr. Ricky Jones. How
My
you
man.
doing, sir?
What's up, baby?
Long time no see.
I know.
No
It's been too long. You still look good, man.
You still look good too. Got your shoes all shined up nice.
Hey, I try to keep up with you, bro. I didn't come here looking like a fool.
I don't know about that. Now, I've had you on the show, but it's been 2 years.
Yeah.
2 long years. Let's not do that again.
Right. No
Right?
doubt.
Because there's so much going on that I don't think people are really paying attention. Right?
Yeah.
So, first of all, before we even get started, because it's been 2 years, tell everybody what you do.
Well, I mean, since I've been with you, I still hold a professorship in the Department of Pan-African Studies at the University of Louisville. I'm the past chair. I don't do the chair thing anymore, so I'm away from all the bureaucracy and the budgets and all of that. But I'm also the Baldwin King Scholar in Residence at the Christina Lee Brown Envirome Institute.
That's right.
And so, it sets up a situation where I can do some different stuff.
I'm still waiting for that phone call so I can get in the Environmental Institute. With all my environmental background, I done talked to Dr. Ted Smith and it feels like, hey,
man, we could use you, bro. We could always use a little bit more melanin in the space, you know?
Well, especially deal with environmental justice that's going on.
Right. No doubt.
So, you wrote an article recently, and I want to break it down because you write every Sunday for the Courier Journal. And there's been a lot of dialogue about black men not supporting Kamala Harris.
Oh, God, here we go, right?
And I want you to explain just your opinion because a lot of people don't know the facts, and I'm watching the commercials, and they all depicting black men not being in support, and they brought up this transgender stuff, et cetera. So I'm gonna turn it over to you because I was getting a little distorted.
Well, you're hearing these arguments
Right.
that upwards of 25, 26% of black men are in the bag for Donald Trump.
Right.
And my argument is that's a false narrative. All these ghost black men who out here going for Donald Trump. But we've been roundly criticized from, people in the media all the way to former President Barack Obama, who chided black men and even accused us, quite frankly, of misogyny, saying that, it just seems like some of y'all might not be willing to support a black woman. And it was, though not necessarily surprising, it was a somewhat painful argument coming from him, but I'm saying it's a false narrative coming from others as well. So I just quickly did a little research. If you understand the history of the parties and black voting allegiance, blacks switched from the Republican Party to the Democratic Party. I mean, it had gone on for a while, but the switch was complete in 1960 in the presidential race between Richard Nixon and John F. Kennedy. I won't go into all the reasons, but some of it had to do with Martin Luther King Jr. But ever since then, the majority of blacks have voted for the Democratic candidate. Now, I'm not making an argument that the Democrats have given us everything that we need.
Because we know that ain't true.
Yeah, because that's not true. We can talk about that later. But I simply went back and did an analysis of actual voting patterns, running back to 1960, okay? What you find when you look at those numbers, the most loyal constituency to the Democratic Party is indeed black women. But the second most loyal constituency is black men by a lot, by a lot. Black men have always, there isn't a single election since 1992 even. And I went back to 92 in that particular article that you're talking about, where Bill Clinton was elected president. You can't find a single election where less than 78% of black men have voted for the Democrat. 95% voted for Obama in 2008, like 87% voted for him
Yeah.
in 2012, right? At 84% of black men voted for Joe Biden. You know, a larger percentage of black men voted for Hillary Clinton in 2016 than white women. And, you know, I tell people, a white woman came to me in 2016 and said, you know, Dr. Jones, why did women abandon Hillary Clinton? And I'm like, no, you're asking the wrong question. You know, 94% of black women voted for Hillary Clinton. 53% of white women voted for Donald Trump. So the question is, why did white women abandon Hillary Clinton? So, you know, the bottom line is this.
Right.
If Kamala Harris loses the election, don't blame black men. I mean, they blame us for everything else under the sun, but don't blame us for that. You need to put that blame where it belongs, on white people. White people, the majority of white men and white women, always vote for the Republican. They voted decisively for Donald Trump in 16 and in 20. The only time that didn't hold true was when a small majority, by a small majority, white women favored Bill Clinton in 96. So it was just a false argument against brothers.
You know, the interesting thing that I would say, they're so concerned, at least the media, about black men voting, right? What about the agenda, right, for
Come on,
black
man.
men?
You asking reasonable questions, brother. You can't do that.
I mean,
I answer that like this, Swanee. Black men are very intelligent voters, and we're also very intelligent politically.
right.
You know, when you really sit down and talk to brothers in the exploration of agendas, we are a constituency, and so we want there to be political positions that speak to our constituency.
Right.
Black men, the women that we love, who love us, the children that we raise and that we love, and we're trying to get through this world. We want to know what politicians are going to put in place specifically to speak to us, who are a group who have been largely disadvantaged by legal rulings and political positions over time in this country.
Right.
That's a fair thing. And so people who say, well, you can't talk about things just about black people, even though you black.
Right.
Tell our Jewish brothers and sisters that.
Right.
Tell our Hispanic brothers and sisters that. Tell our Asian brothers and sisters that. Tell white people that. No other constituency would yield that. And so what I say to the Democrats is one brother told me, older brother years ago, he said, look, black men are smart, and we always know what's going on politically. We know that the Democrats will kill us, but they'll wait till next week. The Republicans, they'll do it tonight. So every time we vote for the Democrats, we vote for 7 more days to plot. Our dear brother Tim Finley has heard the same thing. Many black men have heard the same thing. We understand that. So we're not going around here, you know, excited about the Democrats. We shouldn't be.
Right.
We just understand they're the lesser of two evils.
Right.
So they can have our votes because we're voting against the Republicans, but they can't have our souls.
Right. You know, that's an interesting thing, because do either candidate now have a black agenda for black men? Because that's part of the conversations that, you know, shout out to Dr. Levitt and Osiris Sparv, that we all sit collectively in the group and we talk about important issues that's impacting us and what we actually need.
The real answer to that is no.
Okay.
And you hear people, black people, make arguments. Well, I see that things are happening that this politician did or Barack Obama did. It might not name black people, but it benefited black people. So it's like we got to be secreted into these agendas somehow. I think the reality is this, man. I think that black people are the most despised people in this country. And black men in particular are the most despised single group in the country. And so if any politician mentions anything about black people, then they know that that's a losing proposition because we're so despised. But they don't want to step out and say that, right? But we have to be brave enough to say that. We have to be brave enough to understand that and carve out space for us, even though we're despised and we love each other.
So you know I got to go there, right? Why are we despised?
Look, man, hey.
I mean,
Hey, as Nipsey Hussle said, man, last time I checked, we wasn't the ones who enslaved nobody.
Okay.
We wasn't the ones who beat nobody.
Okay.
We wasn't the ones who raped nobody. We wasn't the ones who, initiated segregation and forced that on nobody.
Okay.
We wasn't the ones who forced nobody from their own lands, right? And stole their culture, their religion, their God. We hadn't done any of that. We wasn't the ones who were breaking up no families. We ain't done any of that to nobody, right? In fact, I shudder to think what America would be if it had not been for black people. When you talk about American ideals, freedom, justice, equality, things like that America likes to talk about, but when you actually explore American history, white America ain't been so committed to freedom. It ain't been so committed to justice. It ain't been so committed to equality. But black people have. We've been committed to freedom because we wanted to be free. We were enslaved. We've been committed to justice because we were treated unjustly in the criminal justice system.
so it's plausible that because we were impacted, that we're more invested than anybody else.
Oh, most definitely.
But in essence, pigmentation has continued to impact our daily lives and have made a subgroup of people, African American men, despised
Yes.
and hated them.
I can't say it any better.
So, with that being said, because I did know the vice president came out with an agenda for African American men,
Yeah.
I didn't really see any meat and potatoes out of it. Nobody else has came up with one. But nobody has begun to address the issue in their campaign with DEI. I had to bring it up.
Why you do in Kentucky? DEI didn't earn it, right?
Yeah, I mean, DEI. Might as well say DEA or something else.
Brother.
Because it don't exist.
Brother, look, I don't have conversations with people about DEI. You know why? I changed the conversation with them. I'm like, you're not really anti-DEI. And now think about what DEI is. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. How do those become bad things? What these people are really about in the state of Kentucky is a prime example of it. And we're seeing it in the city of Louisville too.
Yep.
Because folk in Louisville like to make this argument, well, Louisville is good. We ain't as bad as the rest of the state of Kentucky. Yeah, and a 5'5" person is a giant in a room full of little people too. You comparing yourself to the state of Kentucky, that's a low bar. So Louisville might be better than Kentucky, but it ain't good. What this is really about is the maintenance of white supremacy. That's really what it's about, the maintenance of white supremacy. And I witnessed it. I traveled to Frankfort, Kentucky some time ago, where there is a committee on education that has been established by the Republican supermajority in the state legislature. And they call university presidents in to testify to them about diversity, equity, and inclusion, in effect. From the University of Kentucky, University of Louisville, Eastern Kentucky, Morehead State, and I can't remember where the last school was, but there were 5 of them.
Okay.
All white committee, other than 3 blacks who barely spoke. The black politicians barely spoke. All white presidents talking about a movement that was anti-black, but never mentioned black people. Never mentioned black people by name. In fact, what you have right now, even with the DEI officers, the few of them that are left in the state,
Right.
because the University of Kentucky wiped its DEI unit.
Wiped it out.
The University of Louisville renamed its unit, and those people there, as well as others in the state, basically have marching orders to never mention the names black. They don't talk about black people. Never mention anything about structural racism. Never mention anything about white supremacy. No, those are banned
So
terms.
it sounds like they could mention every other race but black.
Yeah. Look, man, they
have
do.
an office.
They talked about poor whites in Appalachia. They'll talk about the military. They'll talk about everybody, but they will not talk about black people, even the black people. So UK dismantled its unit. Northern Kentucky dismantled its unit. When a white politician went up to Northern Kentucky, said she didn't know she could send her son there because she saw a black student union, and she said, everything here is black. I don't see anything for white people. You know, in Northern Kentucky, like 80-some% of the student body is white. Over 90% of the professors in Northern Kentucky is white. And that's what these people do. I don't understand why Kentucky even has an anti-DEI or anti-black movement. It's the 8th whitest state in the country.
Well,
White people have already won.
It sounded good during COVID and during the protests. See, me and you, we had this whole conversation.
I told you.
2 years ago.
I told you.
That white guilt was going to be gone.
You were hopeful. You were still hopeful.
I was hopeful that Kentucky would be logical. And even though most of the world works in an illogical manner and politics is involved, but we keep having this pendulum. We going back and forth. It's a very circular motion, right? And the people like us, we're the ones just suffering, right? So what is it that we need to do? I mean, because we can talk about it, right? But what is it that we need to do? Because it is something we can do. Because otherwise, we might as well just go home, retire.
This is where you and I'll see if we've come together. This is where we parted company in the past, right? When you say, what is it that we can do?
Yeah.
When I left Morehouse College, right, one of my professors said to me, he said, look, all of you Morehouse men can't and shouldn't stay in Atlanta. You got to go to other places, basically to spread the word,
Right.
plant the flag, do some work.
Right.
And you fight where you are. You fight for equality where you are. You fight to help your people wherever you are.
Right.
And so when I came to the state of Kentucky, it was already a weird thing. I mean, I went to the University of Kentucky for graduate school.
Right.
I was the only African-American PhD student in the Department of Political Science. There were no black professors.
I can believe it.
All right. I was only the second African-American to get a PhD in political science from that school. We're talking in the mid-1990s, man.
I can believe it.
I was having a Ruby Bridges experience. And I'm like, okay, this is a weird place. So then I come to Louisville. And I was like, well, Louisville's got to be better. It's blacker, right?
It was at that time.
Well, it's blacker than Lexington. I mean, it's all relative, right?
Yeah.
But here's the sad reality, man. There was a time that I really felt we could move Louisville forward
Right.
and possibly the state. But I did think that Louisville was Kentucky's best hope.
Right.
I don't feel that way anymore. I think you have to understand when you're beaten, and you have to understand that some spaces are lost spaces.
Right.
I mean, you were a ball player.
Yeah.
You know that you have some games where you get into the fourth quarter and you like, we
I ain't
cooked.
got- Yeah. I ain't got
We
it.
done. This is over.
I ain't
right?
got it.
We gotta play again.
Sounds like Richardson the other day.
Bruh. Yeah, the bro's like, I'm done. He's like, I'm done. I need a blow here.
Yeah.
But I do think that white supremacy has won in Kentucky. I think it is a lost space. I think that is the case in Louisville. I
Right.
told you before, when we were together before, Louisville is one of the 50 largest cities in the country to never have elected a black, female, or Hispanic mayor. That's not good.
That's not
You
good.
know, I
That's
mean, I
not
think
good.
the whites in the state are pretty callous, even though they'll smile in your face. And blacks here have been subjected to that for so long
Right.
that they're broken into a state of passivity and cowardice that's not going to change things.
Right.
So what do? Most of us at this point, man, really are packing up our things and going home or going somewhere else. I mean, and that makes sense.
Right.
Because I don't think that the overlords of Louisville and Kentucky can have it both ways. You can't tell black folk that you and your children are going to be completely disempowered here, but we want you to stay, when we understand that really all they want us to do is to serve and entertain.
Right.
So while these people talking about DEI, man, look, all this diversity, man, I think somebody need to look at these basketball and football teams at these colleges and universities around here, man, because them starting lineups in them basketball and football teams, man, they way too black. Them boys, ain't no way they earn that, man. We need some more white folk on them teams.
They're not exercising, or they're not going to get rid of DEI on basketball, football team. They won't have a team.
Well, except at Bellarmine University. Bellarmine University will have a basketball team.
They will have a basketball team.
That team look like 1955 Alabama or
they
something,
might
brother.
not do well in the NCAA tournament, though. That's what happens when you don't have the diversity.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, but brother, I really well, and even economically, right?
Right.
I mean, the most diverse states, New York, California,
Right.
also the best economically. One of the most diverse cities, certainly at
Yeah.
this side of the country. Atlanta's beating out states
Right.
economically. So diversity is good, but you look, man, it doesn't mean that Kentuckians are reasonable about that.
We have moved closer together.
Who, me and you?
Yeah, me and you. But you know, I'm holding out one last straw, just because I think, you know, the younger generation gives us hope. I think we saw a generation that I didn't think the protest could be duplicated from the 1960s. And I did see people galvanize around the issue, even though we had two factions going on at the same time. But I did see.
Did they galvanize those ones? Was that a moment or was it a movement? Now you tell me, right?
Yeah.
What happened after that protest to change the structural racial dynamics and power dynamics in the city of Louisville?
Right. The problem is there's no economic power behind
No,
it.
answer my question. Let me turn it to interviewer for a second. Did the racial power dynamics in Louisville change as a result of that protest?
Nope.
No, you didn't get anything.
Nope.
There was no post-protest strategy. In fact, the white backlash in the city and the state has been so strong that I would argue racially, Louisville and
probably got
Kentucky
set
are
back.
farther behind than they were in
But
2022.
isn't Kentucky almost resemble what's happening in the rest of the nation?
No. I think certainly you see pockets of the
You
rest
see
of the
pockets
nation
of-
that are like
Let's
that.
bring up Florida.
Kentucky doesn't stand alone.
No.
But Kentucky certainly is a place that is very representative of the triumph of white supremacy.
Right.
So it makes sense that only 6 states in the country
Right.
voted in higher percentages for Donald Trump in 2016 and 2020
Right.
than Kentucky did. So Kentuckians will divert you with that. You're from Chicago, man. You know better. They're
I
gonna
know.
tell you when you point out stuff that's going on in Kentucky and in Louisville. Well, everybody else is like this too, and they ain't never traveled.
No,
You know, without they live with.
Well, I can
got
tell
a
you
50
Florida
50
is
mile
like
radius.
Kentucky, so I'm going to tell you that right up front.
And ain't nobody trying to go there right now. Ain't nobody trying to go there right now.
You can't even speak CRT or anything else.
Because they're all the same thing. Whether you talk about woke,
Oh, yeah.
CRT,
Yeah.
BLM, DEI, all of that stuff is really, really about the promulgation of white supremacy when you
So-
understand the arguments.
If you remove DEI, you remove woke, you remove CRT, what's going to be the damage?
Oh, you already seeing it.
Yeah.
You know, people have to understand when you talk about nativist, authoritarian, white supremacist regimes,
Right.
all of those spaces, a number of things are going to happen. They're going to seize control of the journalistic apparatus. Okay? Like, I write for a paper, and sometimes I don't know if a piece I write is going to be accepted or not, right?
Right.
Because the editorial team is subject to white ownership.
Right.
So they're going to seize control of that journalistic apparatus. And you see that happening internationally as well.
Correct. You
right?
do. They killing people though,
Yeah, they are killing people, but
just for their freedom of speech.
you can kill people's voices,
Oh yeah.
right? And that's what happens in a more civilized country.
Right.
You kill their voices, it's just as effective.
Right.
But then they also seize control of the educational apparatus.
Right.
So why do you think you have these people really, really gunning for school boards across the country? They're trying to seize the curriculum, you know, of these schools. They're banning books. They're
Right.
doing all of these things, right? And they'll quiet, discredit, or force scholars out. They'll
Right.
try to get rid of intellectuals. And that leads to control of the political apparatus.
Right.
You know, so all of those things are happening here in Kentucky. Look at the things that people are silent about, right? Look, man, telling the truth shouldn't be a revolutionary act. But if you
Right.
speak up in this place and you tell the truth, people are like, oh, you revolutionary, you crazy.
Right.
So,
Or
come
you
on,
be
man.
ostracized.
And that's fine.
So if you tell the truth about something, you be ostracized.
Of course.
But you're teaching a younger generation, right? Somebody has to teach our future to change the dynamic down the road. So that's the hope, because what I look at is over time, we have been allowed to get in spaces, or we've forced our way into spaces that we have never been before.
Yeah.
So that's the hope. Not that what we see in Kentucky will change, but that what we see in this country will change.
You're right about that. Just because somebody gives up on Kentucky doesn't mean that they're giving up.
Right.
Just because you give up on Louisville doesn't mean that you
Right.
give up on Charlotte or Atlanta or
Right.
DC, right? There are spaces where black people can live in greater comfort, dignity, decency, and humanity.
Right.
But another thing that's happening here, when you talk about teaching people and what I'm seeing, and if I were a person who was committed to the forward movement and future of this city and state, I would pay attention to what's happening at the universities. One, the types of students they're graduating, because it's
Right.
not just about being students, it's about being citizens, but also looking at the better, more forward-thinking students and whether they're staying or not. I taught a class, a very good class, a year or two ago, about 35 kids. It was before the gubernatorial election.
Okay.
And they were like, we're not interested in this. It wasn't that they were depoliticized, though.
Right.
They were like, we get ready to graduate. One said this, and then the others followed. Said, we get ready to graduate, and we are leaving here. About half the class was Kentuckians.
Okay.
And they were like, we're out. So when you create a space like this, it doesn't just mean that black people aren't going to stay or aren't going to come. There are a lot of white people who are not racist.
Right.
They're forward thinking. They're much more cosmopolitan. They're leaving.
Right.
Every kid in that class, save one, there was only one kid that said that she was remaining in Kentucky.
And
And
they
the problem
leaving.
for her, she's gay. And she's like, I need to see where the state is going politically and socially with regards to people like me, because if it don't turn around, I can't stay either.
So-
So the loss is pretty profound.